Reflecting on those ministries, what I would say about the best way to do ministry um, is that, right, like you're meeting people where they are, one, and then also doing ministry holistically for the whole person. So, right, in terms of meeting people where they are, like, not just even thinking of like where they are mentally, where they are emotionally, where they are socially or spiritually, but also like even physically. Like if we're not seeing people come into church, if we're, and because of the pandemic, like, and because there are still restrictions or we have this new variant now, like thinking of how these things work, and how this time is so uncertain, like reaching people where they're at, like what ways are we reaching people in their homes, what ways are we reaching people on the streets, like that's one thing that the pandemic has taught us, is that ministry has to look different. It can't just be about getting people into the church building. And Barbara Brown Taylor, in her article Finding God Outside of the Church, touches on this, because we've had such a this idea within the church that like we have to bring people in, but it's like no, like seeing the holy, recognizing the divine, in our encounters with people in everyday life, recognizing the divine in spaces, and Taylor gets into like seeing the sacred, or finding sacred spaces that may not even be religious or may not be Christian, but seeing how God is moving in these spaces, in the silence, in the darkness, in the light, and just being able to meet people where they're at. And I think that's one thing that this pandemic has showed us, and revealed that the church is lacking. And then I would say, too, as far as my other point about like ministering to the whole person, I think that in my ministries, in the Hope in the Darkest Days, it was very much tailored to meeting people spiritually and helping people spiritually. And not that that's a wrong thing, but I think that we could have, and I would say moving forward, one thing that I want to continue to think about is reaching the whole person. And even just being at Candler has taught me that like it's important to care for the whole person, not just spiritually, but how are you doing physically? How are you doing mentally? How are you doing emotionally? Do you have support in these areas? Are you doing well in these areas? How can we help you? And so I think, right, especially with the pandemic, because it very much, it was all of those things, like just the anxiety that came from that impacted people's emotional state and their mental states, and there were so many mental health issues as a result of just being living in the pandemic, on top of people who already had mental health issues that were then exacerbated because of this pandemic. And then we have, just physical health, like whether people had COVID or whether they were just dealing with other sicknesses, other illnesses, or just having health issues, period. There were so many things that we could have been doing, and that we can do in ministry to help people in each of those areas. And so I think that's important too. Now, with the women's Bible study, I will say that we did have more things that were tailored to other people's needs. So we had self-care nights where people could do their nails or could soak their feet. I personally did that. And or just eat a good meal, cook some food, and join the meeting. Like doing that, we had like an art night where people could be creative and just have fun. We had Secret Santa gift exchanges. We had a lot of different activities, or just girl talks, being able to just talk together, and see how each other were doing, and just talk about different things that we didn't really talk about in church, like things that were considered taboo, like just being able to meet people in different ways and administer in different ways and just support each other in different ways, because that space was also a place of just support. It was, we were facilitating as a leaders, but we were not saying that we knew everything or that we were the experts and that we were like teaching people. There were parts where we did do Bible studies in that way, but it was really about walking together, and that's what we were able to do.